until all have heard.
Welcome back to Friends in Action's podcast, Till All Have Heard, where we share ordinary people's stories who have done extraordinary work through God's kingdom. We come to you from a special location today, from the other side of the world, in the country of Vanuatu, where we spent the last 2 weeks working on a missions project here on our station with students from LeTourneau University, Nathan and Johanna. It's been a real pleasure to bring them to Vanuatu and be part of our FIA team, and I'm glad they could join us for this special podcast from Vanuatu. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Nathan, let's get started. What made you decide to spend your summer here, or a few weeks with us this summer, rather than maybe doing an internship between your school year or going and doing a bunch of family vacations?
And so it actually started whenever you came to LeTourneau there for the missionary week, and at the beginning of the week they had the prayer chapel, and you were one of the guys that they were praying, and whenever you were sharing your testimony of some of the stuff you've done with Friends in Action there before you went up to break, it sounded something like that I was really interested in doing hands-on work for God's work. And that kind of spiked my interest in Friends in Action. So I went over to you at the table the next day there in the student center and was talking with you. You talked about the mission trip opportunity to Vanuatu, and it sounded like I'd love to go on that. So I went ahead and signed up then.
Yeah, good. So you were really one of our first team members that showed interest. But Joe, that excitement from what Nathan shared with you, tell us how that got you part of this team as well then.
So yeah, I was originally, for the summer, I had not a whole lot of plans. It was just school and work. So I had pretty much my whole summer free. And I wanted to go on a mission trip with my church, but I was too late for the registration and missed all the meetings. And so I was kind of bummed about that. And then Nathan told me about this trip to Vanuatu. So I sent in an application, had my letter written up, and then got accepted and was very fortunately able to raise all the funds in time.
Yeah, good. Good. So if you can't tell, we're actually sitting in the workshop, our welding shop, that we spent the last 2 weeks in, fabricating. It's quite hot today. The sun's shining. Yesterday it was pretty rainy and muggy, kind of that jungle feeling we got while we were working in here. But today, right before we depart later this afternoon, we want to take the time to get to know Nathan and Joe and hear their heart for ministry. So you guys knew each other beforehand, so that makes me as a team leader, that makes the team dynamics very nice because you've already known each other, you've had conversations, you knew you were friends before. So coming here together as on a team of people you've never met before other than a couple Zoom calls for our team meetings, what other dynamics did you experience right off the bat that you might not have been prepared for or thinking ahead about?
Yeah, so like you said, I hadn't met anyone else other than Joe who was on this mission trip, other than you there at LeTourneau, but I hadn't really gotten to know you well. So I was really interested in getting to know everyone the first couple of days, and Rachel and I, whenever we were flying, had a little bit more time because our flights were both out of Dallas coming here, so running through the LA airport was a little bit...
That was one of your first experiences?
That was one of my first experiences getting to know someone else on the team.
That's right. Joe, how about you?
Yeah, it was really interesting because, as same with Nathan, I only met people over Zoom call. I didn't even meet you at Go Week.
Yeah,
I didn't even see your table.
Well, that's good because I didn't remember you, so I'm glad you actually didn't come up to us. So.
Yeah, no, Rachel said she noticed me around and was finally able to put a name to a face. But, yeah, it was really interesting to work with a team that I hadn't worked with or known about, because usually the mission trips I'd been on before had been with members of our church. So it was really interesting to see how to work with people that you don't quite know as well, but also many different backgrounds.
Yeah, no, that's cool. A little bit of the backstory of what Nathan shared. So Susie and I met Joe at LAX. She was coming out of another area of Texas, but then Rachel, another team member, flew with Nathan to LAX, and their plane was delayed. So as Nathan said, he literally ran from his gate to meet us on the international side of LAX to catch our plane. But as he was getting on board, Rachel was still in running mode heading our way as well. So we tried to hold off the plane as long as we could, and praise the Lord, everyone got on the plane. But yeah, as Nathan said, that was his first experience, and yeah, Rachel was quite exhausted when she got to the door, and really they closed the door right behind her. So we're thankful for that. So here in Vanuatu, we've explained a little bit about what construction missions looks like. I know some of that piqued your interest when we were there for Go Week at LeTourneau. Tell the audience what you've been involved here with and how building these trusses like the one behind us expands and helps accelerate gospel work throughout the country of Vanuatu.
Yeah, so we were working on welding together a frame similar to this. First day was mostly getting everything set up and ready. We did some welding, but this is a project for the maintenance shop just over there, and it's so that we can have a spot here, FIA can have a spot here where they can do maintenance on the vehicles and whatnot, so they can get out to the other villages, get supplies and everything. It's all jungle terrain out here, and one of the trips we took out to the Bible school, we saw some of the roads, and yeah, you want a vehicle that's up and running well. So with these frames we're building, that'll expand the shop, be able to get some more space to work on all of that, so that FIA can continue to do more work here.
Mm-hmm. So as engineering students, Joe, you've experienced some welding, but it's not really your major. What was that experience of your courses at LeTourneau compared to the application of doing that here?
Well, I didn't have much of an engineering background until I came to LeTourneau, but even just looking at what I've come to discover about engineering is a lot of problem solving. And so like we did with the Mack truck, like we had very limited resources, very limited budget. Like we couldn't hire a crane to get the Mack truck off of the container. So we had to take the resources we've had and what we had learned and basically apply that to seemingly a simple solution. But when you're out here like in the jungle, in the bush, you don't necessarily have all those resources. So like with an engineering mindset, that problem solving comes in real handy.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, and we'll show some footage as we're talking about the Mack truck. This truck has been a long-time project of FIA from start to finish, from our headquarters in Middletown to now Vanuatu. And it was so neat to see Nathan and Joe work through trying to figure out best solutions and safest solutions to get that truck off of the flat deck container that brought it over here to the country. So we spent 2 days working at that, and as Joe mentioned, your local hardware store or your equipment supply store isn't just right down the road like it is in North America. So you do have to think of that problem solving. You have to think, okay, with these resources, which basically was a bottle jack and some timbers and a little bit of steel, how do we get this truck up, get the wheels on, and then get it safely off? So it was great to see them work on that together with the rest of our team as well. So before we jump into more of the ministry side of it, so I try to warn teams, a lot of times we work long days. Basically, we start off pretty early in the morning with devotions, and then we get into long work days. Sometimes it can be hot, sometimes it can be rainy. Right now in Vanuatu, it's winter, so it's while we're sweating yet here, sitting here doing this podcast, it's actually much cooler and less humid than it typically is during their hot season. So how did you guys adapt to that? I mean, summer break's about taking it easy, about sleeping in, about doing those type of things. How was that? How did you adapt to that schedule once you got here?
I adapted pretty quickly. My sleep schedule is normally pretty flexible. I got to sleep in a little bit compared to some of my days, and some of my days I got up a little bit earlier than usual. But the longer work days was kind of nice to be able to get up and moving, doing hard work the entire day, and then rest in the evening and over the weekend.
Yeah, same here. It was different for sure, but I'm usually pretty adaptable when it comes to many different environments and situations.
Good. Yeah, you guys did a great job at flexing with our schedule and just being flexible. One of the things we try to tell teams that the field is you have to be flexible and humble about changes in schedule and changes in equipment, things like that. So praise the Lord, all of our welding equipment pretty much worked well for us. We had a couple technical difficulties, but we got through that. So let's shift gears a little bit to the ministry side, because we did get a chance to go up to Big Bay. We visited the village up there. We met Pastor Gabi. beyond the technical work we've done here, we've explained how technical ministry can help accelerate the gospel in spiritual ministry. Nathan, tell us about your trip to Big Bay. What your thoughts are, just getting there through the jungle roads that we took, and then experiencing that. Really, the whole afternoon we spent there.
Yeah, that was a really awesome trip. The road was quite long and rough terrain getting all the way up there. I give a little bit of appreciation for the vehicle that we had. Its suspension and tires helped a bit. Once we got up there, it was really neat. We had a job to do working on the repairing to their house, but that wasn't our first priority. Whenever we got up there, we started out walking around and talking with the pastor that we met there. That was really neat to hear and see what it is that they're doing there, and kind of just get to know him a little bit more with that, hear about what they're doing with the next tribes over to with the Bible translation. That was really cool to hear.
Yeah, so Pastor Gabby has been a longtime friend of FIA, and really the driving force behind the water project that we're working on here in the country of Vanuatu. Pastor Gabby recognizes that if we offer to come in and drill wells or run water pipeline and a tap system, he will have the opportunity to go in and preach the gospel. So that's that type of relationship building that the Devon have here. You need to be invited into a village. So using fresh water allows Pastor Gabby to share about the water of life. So Joe, what was your thoughts when we got there? We didn't immediately jump into repairing his house. We spent some time building relationships, which is a little bit different than North America's mindset sometimes. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was wonderful. When we got there, he was just very welcoming. We were offered coconut water, which was really cool. And then I actually didn't hear the story until after, but originally Pastor Gabby wanted us to go into that main meeting area, like in the kitchen, so that we could sit down and he could fellowship with us. But because Levi had walked into the house to go look at the repairs and we followed him, he originally did not want us to immediately start looking at things. He immediately wanted to feed us and to talk with us, and so that was pretty cool to hear that side of the story and just see how much they value relationship, and that first and foremost versus we need to get this done, and then we can rest.
Yeah, it's more important about relationships over the work. And while we were there to actually fix his house, he insisted we spend time eating a meal together and understanding more about the Bible school that he works at up there in Big Bay. So yeah, I'm glad you got to share that experience. Nathan, you shared a little bit about the trip up there. You now realize the importance of Levi's ministry here, fixing bush vehicles for other missionaries around the island here. Mm-hmm. The roads are pretty rough and potholes, and it's bush. I mean, it's the moisture and the puddles and the water, the rivers we crossed to get there. So it is an important ministry to help those others that are out in the bush accelerate the gospel. You've also got a chance to share not only one worship service, but 2 Sunday mornings with Luganville Baptist Church. Explain what your experience was there.
Yeah, so that was awesome. That's one of my favorite things about mission trips to areas that have very different cultures than America, is getting to see how people, how Christians in other areas worship. That was really cool. Even though I didn't necessarily understand all of the words that were said, because half the songs were in a different language and the sermon itself was in a different language, it was really neat to just see the joy illuminating everyone's face there.
Joe, what did you think?
I thought it was really cool to be able to sit in on that and see how, as Nathan said, different Christians worshiping their culture. One thing I really liked is that during the worship, they had all the children there. You know, whether they were paying attention or not, they had them there.
Some were running up on stage.
Yes. And
I'm like, well, you would see that back in the stage, wouldn't you?
Having meltdowns in the front row.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I thought that was really cool. And then when it came time to the sermon, they got sent to Sunday school. So I thought it was really cool to have the community built around that. It's like we all worship together. And then when it comes to the teaching and different levels. But
yeah. And if you didn't notice, still in Vanuatu and many countries around the world, there's still a segregation between men and women. The women would sit on one side and the men would sit on the other side of the church there. But then we kind of break up the difference by sitting right in the middle. And so it's just an interesting cultural thing to recognize too. What were your thoughts listening to some English and some Bislama? How did you feel trying to pick up some of what the pastor, or even some of the worship songs that were in Islam?
Yeah, so whenever it was a song that had been translated from English into Islama, that was easy enough because the tune was still about the same. I knew what the song was. On other mission trips that I was in Mexico, like we just sang along with the song in English while they were singing in Spanish. You do that for some of them, but many of them, it was you didn't really know what they were saying until they got to a couple words that you could recognize or something like that. But you're still worshiping with them, even though you don't necessarily know what they're saying. You can be worshiping in your heart, prayer, along with the music.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you shared this morning when we were reflecting on the week about the worship time, just being, you may not understand all the words, but being there in unity, knowing that you're there with brothers and sisters in Christ is really a cool experience. So not only do we do a lot of ministry work through the construction and also the village visit and at the Baptist church, but we also get some free time on the middle weekends. The way this trip was scheduled, we actually had 2 weekends where we were able to enjoy some of Vanuatu. The first weekend, Sunday, then after church, we went for lunch, and then we headed out to what they call Blue Hole here in Vanuatu. And then just this past weekend, we had spent some time up at Port Orly, beautiful area up there. And again, had a nice dinner out at one of the Turtle Bay restaurants, which is always a great spot for the teams to see. From a cultural side, or more of a scenic side, Joe, what was your impressions, or what did you like or what did you enjoy the most about more of that relaxed cultural experience?
Never seen water so blue. We don't have that back in Texas. We have Galveston, and the water's brown at best. So it was just really beautiful, and it was just really cool to just sit and like look at how blue the water was, at least at Port Orly, and also like the blue hole. It's a blue hole for a reason. It's very blue, very deep, and it was very relaxing and nice to be able to, like, after a long time of like working, just be able to sit and be like, this was worth it.
Yeah. Nathan, what did you think?
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I love getting to see nature and just be in it, relax. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to get to Port Orly and experience the sandbar too, that we were able to walk across, pick up some really nice coral and some shells, and just experience walking over to that other island because the tide was low enough we could walk across the sandbar. So, yeah, not only do we work long days and in the hot, but we do get a chance to enjoy some time out as well, both in church services and then also beachside. I don't know that there's not a place in Vanuatu, a tropical island, where you can't take in beautiful scenery and God's creation. Some of the things I relate to things you would see in almost like National Geographic.
Yep.
Some of the scenery here. So while there still is a lot of lost souls, a lot of animistic religion and spiritual warfare, there's still witch doctors. They still need Jesus here. But it's a beautiful country to come and serve. And it has been known to be the friendliest place on earth. So the Nivan are very generous and very friendly as well. So shifting gears, just a couple things before we wrap up our time here, or before we get too hot and melt down. Nathan, I'll start with you. What's one of the biggest takeaways that you may share when you get back to LeTourneau with students about your experience this summer?
Yeah, so one of the biggest takeaways for myself and I'll be sharing is how even like with the little amount of experience in engineering studies that I've had, I'm able to apply what I have learned on the mission field. That's something I've always wanted to do, is to be able to use the technical skills that God has given me in order to make an impact for His kingdom. And that was really cool to get that opportunity to experience that year. And I'm looking forward to doing more of that in the future.
And Joe, same question for you.
I would have to say that it just encouraged me more, and that God can still use anyone and anything to spread the gospel message, even if it seems very little or it doesn't seem very important. Because I feel like back in North, at least with my church, we focus a lot on evangelism and like talking to people and trying to win them over, like just by conversing with them, which is good and all, but like this mission trip has really shown me that like even just supporting missionaries or building those relationships can really impact the kingdom. And so even what Levi's been doing here with like the mechanic shop, and he didn't know, like practice jujitsu, is able to do that with some Yvonne, and that builds a relationship. Through that, you can probably absolutely share the gospel with people through that. So just remembering that, once again, I say, God can use anyone and anything. There are no limits on God.
Yeah, it's pretty neat how Levi uses that as a ministry to some of the Yvonne here, his jiu-jitsu that you mentioned. And Nathan got a chance to experience some of that. I have yet to do that after the couple of years I've been here. I still tell him no. But I'm glad you got a chance to experience that. How do you see that being again, maybe not in a church building or a real direct evangelism active ministry, but how do you see that as being part of Levi's ministry?
It's a great way to build relationships with people that might otherwise you're not able to find a immediate connection. That's a really cool opportunity, unique opportunity for sure, and it gets people excited, gets people coming in, seeing that you actually care about them and you want to be able to build a relationship with them, and then through that relationship you can have ministry.
Yeah. So I'm glad you got a chance to experience that. You got a chance to watch. As we wrap this up, it's been a joy to get to know you guys this weekend, both for my wife and I and Levi and the family and Rachel too. And we hope the connection with LeTourneau continues on. We hope to get back there this fall and then again for the mission week next year. So it's been a great opportunity to meet a lot of students like yourselves. We had over the spring break mission trip. This past year we had a group go to Ethnos 360 with Friends in Action and experience a week-long trip there. So I'm encouraged about LeTourneau wanting to partner with us and to trust us enough to send students. So as you go back to school this coming year, what's one thing you could tell or you would encourage other college students or other college students in general or students directly in the engineering department of LeTourneau? What's one thing you would share with them to encourage them about missions?
Just take the opportunities that you get. It was quite a blessing to be able to come on this mission trip. So it was really not possible without the opportunity given to us from the funding and all of that. So take the opportunities that are gotten or that are able to be gotten.
And how about you, Joe?
Any workplace can be used for God. Like, whether you're a student or a fully professional engineer, any place, which I'm very glad LeTourneau tells us, is that any place is your ministry. So just wherever you are, God has placed you there for a reason. So you are to live in His image there and minister, even if it doesn't seem like the most likely place to minister, even at a Christian school.
Yeah, good. Well, I hope you had a good experience. I hope you encourage other students, and we're excited about the continued relationship. Thanks so much for taking this time here, our last day. We fly out later this afternoon, so we're kind of wrapping things up today and packing up and just catching up on and reflecting on what the last 2 weeks looked like for us. I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this podcast. It's something that we really have a burden on our heart at Friends in Action to share true stories, to share real life experiences of ordinary people doing extraordinary things for God. For our listeners, these two represent exactly what excites me about the next generation coming into ministry. I oftentimes had an image in my mind of missionaries were old, retired, and went to the mission field and never returned, and were either evangelists or church planners or preachers. But this gives a new perspective on an understanding of you too can be part of ministry, you too can be a missionary, you too can be highly involved in ministry where God has blessed you, where God has given you gifts, whether that's construction or whether that's any type of support services in finances, in communication, in photography, in video, like we're doing here with these podcasts. Anything that can help support and accelerate the gospel is just as important as those who are on the ground doing the ministry evangelism. So it's just been great to unwrap this for you guys this week to see how God has blessed you in your engineering skills and your technical skills that you can be part of the ministry. If you're a student listening to this, or if you know students who might be interested in discovering how their skills could have kingdom purpose, I encourage you to reach out to either Joe or Nathan or Friends in Action International. We'd love to explore different options that we have throughout the year, not just over the summer, but throughout the school year. And And I'd love to connect with you next time I'm on campus or even through a Zoom or a virtual call that we can set up. Nathan, Joe, any final thoughts for the listeners before we sign off?
Final thoughts. It was just amazing to get to see all of the differences and similarities here between what we see day to day, and the food was amazing.
I did mention the food. The food was amazing. Anything for you, Joe?
It was an amazing experience to come here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you both. And thank you to our listeners for joining this podcast episode to All I've Heard. Remember, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And sometimes that calling leads to welding steel in the middle of the jungle on the other side of the world. Until next time, keep asking God how he might use you and your skill to advance his kingdom, because truly we're doing this until all have heard. Thanks.